Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Flick Your Bick podcast network here with Ben and Nick. Nicholas, how are we doing today?
Doing pretty good. It's a hot one today. There's a Facebook group that is literally called "Boy, it sure is a hot one today." Every single day, and it comes with like a derpy picture. Yeah, it comes with a derpy picture of a old white man with that caption, and you're supposed to post that picture every single day.
That sounds about right. I don't know if any of you out there who know Midwesterners, but all we do is talk about the weather. So that sounds about right.
There's not a whole lot we can talk about, in all honesty.
That's a good point. It's a good point. It's like college football and the weather. It's like our two things. And when that's not in season, it's just the weather. Also, particularly some storms. People like to get all in about that. My favorite thing is I guess I come from a family of farmers, and it's always asking questions of each other of exactly how much rain they got. It's because my dad has like a rain gauge and like checks it religiously, and he'll like ask me, "So, how much rain did you get in Lincoln?" I'm like, I don't know, a lot. Like I don't have no reason to measure that, but okay. He's like, "Well, we got like 2¼ inches." I'm like, "Cool,
Neat."
sounds good." Yeah, I don't know. Oh, generational gap. Well, folks, as you know, we always start the podcast with what we have been flicking our bicks to recently. If you're new, just a reminder, that's just things that have been tickling our fancies over the week. A lot of times it's music, but it can also be pretty much anything. So, Nick, what are you flicking your bick to this week?
Well, I had the pleasure of going to watch Hamilton on Broadway in Des Moines, so I've been nerding on everything Hamilton recently. Just that's an amazing soundtrack and show. So I've been doing nonstop, just learning about our founding fathers, pretty much.
That's right. That's awesome. That is awesome. Funny story about that. My sister or my mom know what Hamilton is exactly. They just know it's a musical, and they like musicals. So my sister got my mom the soundtrack for her birthday, and my mom's like, "Yeah, I got the Hamilton soundtrack from Lydia. I'm really excited because that's coming to Omaha next year, and I'll be ready for the show." I'm like, "Do you know what Hamilton is all about?" She's like, "Yeah, it's a musical." I'm like, "Yeah, it's like mainly rap." She's like, "No, it's not." I'm like, all right. Enjoy listening
You're
to
gonna
that.
want to listen to this.
Have fun. Yeah. So we'll see what she thinks. I want my mom's review of Hamilton.
Oh my god, yeah.
That would be hilarious, actually.
So the show's always had a super diverse cast, primarily having a mostly black cast playing like Thomas Jefferson, which is pretty ironic, and a lot of other of the actors are just black, and I think that's really cool. This play that I did see, they had an Asian George Washington, which is probably the coolest thing ever.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's always interesting the differences between the original company and then the traveling company.
Yeah, apparently the guy that was playing Hamilton, he looked in like in the playbill what other things that he's done. He's done 2 other Broadway musicals that I believe that Lin-Manuel has done, or is like he's played the role as Lin-Manuel. So like he's basically Lin-Manuel 2.0 kind of.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, man, I'm so jealous. That show's incredible, and it's coming to Omaha next year, I think. So I hope to get tickets to that, but I'm sure.
Yeah, get them as soon as
expensive.
We'll
see what we can do, because yeah, man, I'm excited. What was the best song?
Ooh, that's a tough one, because honestly, from us being both musical theater and just theater in general, what my perceptions of the songs were completely different going in, since I had never seen the show, obviously. So the seeing it in front of me and acted it out, it gave me a whole different context of what the songs were.
Right.
So
you would listen to the soundtrack like a lot before, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, the main leads, they didn't move around too much, which I thought was interesting. The extra actors, that they're not the secondary characters, they're just like background people, that their choreography was the best choreography I've ever seen. I found myself watching the extras kind of more than the leads, which was incredible, and I enjoy doing that. So it's kind of hard to say like which songs were my favorite, because a lot like my perception going into this is like, oh, I like this song and this song, then coming out it was completely different. I did have a new appreciation for It Must Be Nice to Have Washington on Your Side. The guy that was playing Thomas Jefferson, I think, where he just goes off on like an entire paragraph of just raps. He just goes off.
He goes hard.
That was dope. Funny story, actually. I went with my sister to go see Hamilton. After the show, we kind of walked around the block to find somewhere to eat, and we eventually stopped at a certain point and decided to turn back around and head back towards the direction of the auditorium where we saw Hamilton. On the way back, we are like 99.99% sure that we passed the guy that was playing Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson. He was just walking back just on the street in regular dude's clothes. We were not too sure, but we're pretty sure that it was, and we didn't want to be like staring at the guy and like being those types of people that like point out the annoying a famous person. But yeah, we passed that guy. We were like right next to him.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of people, like I know in the Orpheum in Omaha, they have like the stage door and people will wait outside to get like autographs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I don't know, I always feel weird about that. Like, even, because I've, like, run into some, like, somewhat famous people in public, and I'm just always so much like, oh, I don't want to bother them, you know? Like, that's...
Right.
That's always my default, and sometimes I wish, man, I should have said something, but I think
if you're just, like, cool and, not a spaz about it, you can do it. Just like, hey, what's up? You had a really good show. I really appreciate your work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, just a quick in and out. They'd probably appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. I saw your pictures and stuff, and I was super jealous. But yeah, that's super cool.
We were like the 10th row from the front, so it was awesome.
Oh, damn! Yeah, that's a whole nother experience when you're that close. It's almost a completely different show. Yeah, that's
right.
That is really cool. Well, mine is not going to quite beat that this week, but one of my favorite bands. They're a lesser known band. They're called the Wild Feathers. They're kind of Americana-ish, but their last album was like kind of like acid rocky. They just released a new album a couple days ago, and I've been listening to that nonstop, and it's really, really cool. It's a little more back to more of their like grassroots folky style, which I really like.
Okay.
And if you like that sort of stuff, I highly recommend it. A lot of acoustic and a lot of harmonization, which I really appreciate. And I saw them live a couple years ago in like a small venue, and they were absolutely incredible. So I highly recommend those guys. If you like that sort of stuff, check it out. The name of the album is like the Neon Frontier, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
And it's called The Wild Feathers is the name. So check those guys out. They are a great band. I know Abby really likes them too.
How long have they been around?
That's a good question. I just got into them probably back in like 2015, 2016.
Okay.
And they only had one album out at that time, so I'm guessing somewhere around there.
Okay.
Would be my guess, but I could see some of the songs from this album going pretty mainstream.
Okay.
I could see them kind of blowing up here shortly. Which would be awesome.
Yeah, I wanted to pick your brain about that. Like, how do you feel about like these cool indie bands going mainstream? Like, perfect case example is Imagine Dragons. They were kind of low. Or another one is that one. I forget what band it was, but they had like a super popular song. I Will Wait for You. I don't remember the band, but they're like super folky. They were pretty like indie, and then they went to mainstream, and then now they went from folk to like synthesized and like kind of techno kind of.
Yeah. That personally, and not to be the hipster guy, but I'm not a huge fan of like what's generally considered like poppy music right now. A lot of the like synthy electronic stuff I just don't really vibe with most of the time. So when bands do that, I get a little frustrated because I'm like, oh, Electro World sounds so much better.
Yeah,
but you know, like people I don't blame them. Like they're reaching a bigger audience with that and like making more money and becoming more famous. So I'm not gonna like, hold a grudge against them for that. But yeah, a lot of the times that doesn't work out. It bothers me. Like Imagine Dragons, like I like a lot of their old stuff way more.
Oh yeah.
And the big one for me is Maroon 5. Like their first couple albums, I really, really liked, and now it's. They have like a bunch of like rappers on, and it's super like synthy and super poppy, and that's not really my not really my personal taste. So that yeah, that does get a little frustrating sometimes. I'm trying to think other bands that I really liked that kind of went off.
For some reason, I do not like the lead singer of Maroon 5. He just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know what it is.
Adam Levine, yeah, I don't. The ladies seem to really like him, which I don't understand. He's just like such a small little man, but they like the tattoos and stuff. I don't know, but he's got an interesting voice. Like I really liked him on a lot of their older albums, like Songs About Jane and the one after that, which I can't remember. But yeah, it's that's probably the biggest one for me. My favorite example of a band not doing that is Lumineers. I was a fan of them a while back, and they got big with Ho Hey and a couple other songs that got really popular.
Yeah.
But their next album was still very similar and in the same kind of still in the same genre as they were before, and I thought it was awesome. We'll see how that goes, because I think that album was really successful as well, and they've been touring and all over the place and having big tours. So we will see. I never want to like tell an artist like, hey, don't experiment, don't try new things, just keep doing the same thing over and over again, like, because that gets boring, obviously, and people want to experiment. But
that's kind of how you grow as just an artist, is trying different things and experimenting.
Oh yeah,
which
and
puts it in like a weird position if you're like a big famous musician, like being known to do like folk music, but now you do like kind of synthy tech music. Like you got a bunch of fans that want you to go back to the old stuff, then you got new fans that like the new stuff, and you want to try to please everything. So I get it a lot. Like they have my sympathy for that. It's not an easy position to be in.
Yeah, no, that's a tough line to walk there for sure. And and I, even though like I don't really listen to Maroon 5's new stuff at all, I still like, hey, I still like support that band. I'm not going to be like, yeah, screw Maroon 5, because they're like insanely successful now, so good for them. They know better than I do. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been listening to recently. That's what we've been flicking our Bix to. So on to the main topic of this podcast here today. We're going to be talking about our college experiences. I think the main reason we want to do this is we have almost polar opposite stories to tell about our college experiences, and I think that contrast is really interesting, and it should spark a interesting conversation about that. So Nick, how about you start? Let me know just what was your college experience like. So we graduated from high school same year, same time, same class, and then we kind of went different ways. Tell me about yours.
So I graduated at the Iowa Western Community College. It's I don't know how big it is when I graduated, nor how big it is now, but it's I
feel like it's grown a lot.
Yeah, it's a pretty good fair size for just a community college. So when my college experience years, I was still living at home. I just did a commute. It was only about like 20 minutes to Iowa Western, and I was always envious of like you and everyone else that I knew that went to like universities, because that's the college experience. That's what you see in TV shows and mainstream media. I kind of wanted to experience that, being the weird, awkward 18-year-old kid that I was. So for going to a community college and just commuting from home, I always felt that I was still kind of in high school. Like, I had my direct routes that I went every single day. I saw the same people that I saw every day. Another interesting thing is, even though I went to class and whatnot, I didn't make really any friends until the last 2 years of community college that I went into, but more on that later. But the first year that I went, I didn't make any friends. Like, it was very much the mentality of go to school, go to class, don't talk to anyone, just get in, get out, that was it. And I'd even say that was primarily with my core group of 6 other friends that I made in the later years of my college years. But yeah, it was a very, and I'm not sure if it's just community colleges in general, but again, it was a very mindset of get in, get out, just go in there and do your thing and go on with your day. So there was seldom any people talking, really. You had a decent amount of people, although, that actually lived on campus and in the dorms, which, sure, that makes total sense, but a majority of the people, they didn't really interact with each other.
Yeah, no, I think that's mainly a community college thing, because you have such a wide range of ages, and people have like different goals. like I know, like personally, I took some classes at Iowa Western my senior year of high school,
Mm-hmm.
and that was always interesting to me. In some of those classes, it was like some high schoolers like us, some like college students, and then some people who were like in their 40s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like going back for a degree. So it's a interesting range of people who have different goals. And yeah, when I know there are some dorms at Iowa Western, but when the majority of students don't live on campus, that's definitely limiting as far as seeing a lot of people and
Right.
having those kind of experiences. Iowa Western, I will say, from like academic wise and athletic wise, is one of the better community colleges in the nation.
Oh, for sure.
Their facilities are really crazy nice for a community college, on par with a lot of universities I've been to. But do they have like a huge like student like activities or like student groups? Is there a large like student life
Like clubs and
like
whatnot?
clubs and stuff? Yeah.
I believe so. Like they and I'm not very well versed in knowledge for like the fraternities, but they had frats and they had school events, they had clubs and stuff. So there was a social aspect to that to the students that cared about that type of thing at Iowa Western.
Oh, okay, nice. I wasn't I didn't know that. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that was Nick's. My college experience was a little more classic. I attended the University of Nebraska Lincoln, which is about a little under 2 hours away from my hometown. I was actually a third generation student there. Both my grandparents went there. Both my parents went there. My parents met at a Nebraska football game, so we're about as Cornhusker as it gets. And for that reason, actually, initially I didn't want to go to Nebraska. I wanted to do something different.
Oh, really?
So I
didn't know
toured
that.
a bunch of different schools. Yeah, I toured a bunch of different schools. But then when I went to Lincoln, I just objectively liked it better. The program that I wanted was strongest there, and I wanted to be far enough away from home that it felt different than just being at home. Another school I was looking at was only like 20 minutes away from home, and I was like, I don't know, that seems...
Yeah.
I didn't want my parents just like popping in randomly, which I still got some of that in Lincoln because it was, again, not that far, and they came in for most of the football games. But yeah, that was my experience, and yeah, it was a very I'd say classic university experience. I lucked out. My roommate for freshman year was a friend of a friend that I already had. We'd met beforehand and got along really well, so that was awesome. And then through there was kind of a incoming students like social media platform where you like matched with people. It's almost like eHarmony for roommates. I met somebody on there who I wanted to be roommates with, but he had already committed to being with somebody else. It was heartbreaking, but
The one
it's my
that got
friend
away.
Tyler. Yeah, it's like, yeah, but we were a 98% match, and then we met, like, he came up and hung out with us the first day that we all moved in, and we've been best friends ever since. So yeah, and I met just a whole bunch of people on our floor that I became good friends with that I still, keep in touch with and I'm friends with today. Yeah, and it's your classic, big school experience. I think at the time, UNL's undergrad was 28,000. I think it's over 30 now. It continues to grow.
Wow.
But yeah, so it's kind of a mid-sized university. There's definitely smaller and there's definitely larger, but it was nice. And Lincoln's a great town. It's a college town, but also large enough that it's not like the only thing in town. There's other things going on. I absolutely loved it. For like the social aspect and like meeting people and like going out and experiencing different things. I absolutely love that. The only downside is school was difficult at times and expensive. So I think that kind of leads us into my next question. What are some of the biggest pros and cons of your college experience?
Pros and cons. At that time, I was in a weird part of my life where, like, I wasn't sure what to do with my life in the future, but there's still, like, I had an interest in doing stuff. So, going to a college that people really didn't give two shits about what anyone else did made it a little bit difficult, but it was certainly, I guess, which is interesting because I look back on that, and I think... because I've gotten quite a bit more, I don't want to say antisocial, but more reserved in just me being in public and interacting with people. And going to a community college where the mindset was get in, get out, don't like keep your head down, do your work, and then you can just leave. I think that kind of mindset carried over to me today because I'm a very reserved person now in public settings. I'm definitely more of a listener than a talker when it comes to group conversation. So I think oddly enough that weird mindset has stuck with me and is pretty much now permanent in my ways, pretty much. Although after I originally started with a communications major, which I just kind of picked that because it was super broad and I could go into a bunch of different areas with that. Eventually, it came to a point where I thought to myself, this is too broad. I don't know what I want to do. So I still kind of wanted to do voice acting a little bit. I didn't have a voice acting classes, obviously, because it's a pretty niche thing. They had acting, but I didn't really want to do associate with the Iowa Western Acting Theater Department. not that they're bad, but and I'll just leave it at that. So I kind of went on the other spectrum and picked up sound engineering, and that's what I got my associate's degree in. Spent 2 years there and got my degree that. So interestingly enough, my class, all my audio engineer class, we were 7 students for all the classes. So it was a very tight-knit group of students. The first half of taking classes for that, it was pretty everyone still had the mindset of keep your head down and whatnot, but after it's a group of 7, so going to the exact same classes over and over again, so we eventually warmed up to each other. We got along famously. Still love those guys. So eventually I did make friends, just 7 of them. Interestingly enough, my grade was 7 students. The next audio engineering group of students was 30 students. So huge,
wow, really?
Huge difference. We only had technically we only had the first year 1 teacher, and then the next year we had he was replaced by another guy, and then he had an assistant teacher. So really weird differences in teachings and stuff like that. And yeah, I kind of feel bad for both those teachers because they had to deal with an advanced group of students of 7 and then go back to basics with 30. That just seems really weird off balanced.
Yeah, definitely. For me, pros, like I said before, were just the social aspect of it, meeting friends, having really cool opportunities, going to football games, parties, basketball games, all that sort of stuff. Some really great, funny stories about people I could tell that I absolutely cherish. I wouldn't trade that for anything. The cons would be it's a lot more expensive.
Sure.
And I know coming from our small high school, I was definitely not prepared for college. Academic wise, in any stretch of the imagination.
Well,
yeah. I think I only took a couple classes in high school that I think actively reflected the amount of work and time that it takes to be successful in a college class. And I thank my professors, my teachers in high school for that, because without those I would have been even extra screwed. But I know I was able to kind of walk through high school without trying too hard or doing a whole lot of effort. Yeah. So when I came to college, I had no idea how to study. I didn't know really what that even meant. My first Spanish test in college, I was talking to my friend who's in the class. I'm like, you study? I'm like, yeah, man. I looked at it for 30 minutes. And, kind of reread the chapter 1 or 2 times. I'm like, I'm good. I'm ready to go. And then I showed up for the test, and I was like, oh, I don't know what any of this is.
You didn't have a long table of people that we could consequently cheat off one another.
Yes, I know. I missed you guys. I needed your help with that one. Yeah. But so that was a huge adjustment. My grades were terrible that first semester of freshman year, just because I had no idea what I was doing at all. And that's the thing about those bigger schools. You can kind of get lost in the shuffle, especially freshman year when you're taking a lot of larger lecture classes.
Oh, yeah.
You're kind of just up to your own wits. And I just thought I was fine. I was like, I'm kind of messed up that one. I'll study a little bit more next time and I'll be fine. And I didn't. It took me a semester to really understand what it took and how all that was going on. My mom at the time thought I was spending too much time partying and doing everything. So I didn't think I was, because I was studying harder than I ever had in high school. So I figured that would be enough. Obviously, it wasn't. So yeah, that adjustment was really tough, academic wise. for sure. And obviously, I figured it out later, and it got better. But yeah, that transition was super difficult, and I was not at all ready for it whatsoever. So that was very difficult.
Yeah, yeah. I find myself thinking the complete opposite of academic wise for like talking to you and all of our other friends that are our age that went to universities. I had a cakewalk for my from all my classes, like my first year of communications. Granted, those were just like pretty easy, like general electives. I did struggle on the math part, but that's just because I'm bad at math.
Yeah, who doesn't, you know?
Yeah. The audio engineering classes was pretty interesting. I kind of went back and forth on difficulty for those because it's a very technical and hands-on thing, which caters to me a little bit better than I'm definitely more of a hands-on learner than like a reader learner, whatever you want to call it. However, I do kind of give myself I'm not sure what you call it, but I do give myself a little bit of a fade back. Like I can't say that I was super good at classes. So my final semester of college, I graduated with a 4.0, which I don't think that means shit because for most of the tests for the audio engineering classes, they were online, and my teacher just said you can use the internet to look up stuff. So I kind of don't feel like I deserve it. However,
yeah, whatever, man, we'll take it. Take it where you can get it.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun thing to throw around. However, there were for a major that is definitely more has aspects of like artsy fartsy kind of things attuned into it. I think even though I got a 4.0, I don't think that I really deserved it. Aside from using the internet to use on all my tests and exams and whatnot, mostly because when I get an assignment, it'd be like, you gotta do this, this, and this to this music track, and just other assignments like that. And then there had also instructions on like adjust the drum kit to a format that you really like and whatnot and stuff. Just instructions on what the teacher wanted you to do to grade on. So I would do the bare minimum, and I would pass and get an A and whatnot. So some of my classmates, some of them were more did not give a fuck about class as much as I did. Not so they came late a lot of the time, so that's whatever. But when they would actually like do an assignment, they actually had like really interesting thoughts, and they changed up a lot of things that were very interesting and very artful and stuff like that, versus me where I just kind of did the bare minimum and got the good grade, whereas they did everything when they tried, but since they were late or they turned in the assignment like they get docked points. But I feel like they deserve a better grade because they kind of put a little bit more thought into the artistic side into that. So I'm a little bit on the fence of like how my grading went. It's kind of a weird situation.
Well, I would argue that I guess I would almost prefer your situation because what you were doing in class was like super related to like the major and what you were trying to do.
Sure.
And I would guess that stuff that you did or for assignments like is things that you learned that you do when you do audio visual stuff now, right? Like that's like there's like a direct correlation between what you were studying and like doing and practicing to the major.
Oh, absolutely.
The biggest thing, yeah, which was the big one, probably the most frustrating thing for me at Nebraska was all the like prerequisite classes you have to take, and we had a thing called ACE requirements, which is like you have to become like a well-rounded student. So you just like take a class from all these different categories of stuff that's like not at all related to what you're trying to study, and I found that just like super frustrating. I'm like grinding on this class to try to get a good grade, but I like for example, I had to take a science class. It was geology to get my science requirement, and I was like studying all these like rocks and shit and like trying to get a good grade in this class. I'm like, this is gonna have no impact on my career whatsoever, and it's taking away my time from studying things that I actually care about and that will actually impact my career. And that's super frustrating. And some of that's just me, myself. I have a hard time being motivated for things that I don't care about so much. And that's probably one of my bigger issues that I deal with on a daily basis. But yeah, that was one of the more frustrating things for me. And also when you realize how much a credit hour costs, even with some of the scholarships I had at the time.
Oh, for sure.
It's still really frustrating. It's like, well, I'm paying to do this class that I literally could care less about. So I think that's an advantage, I think, to doing, like you said, like an associate's degree at a community colleges. You're going to spend less money and you're going to be focused on what you actually want to be focused on. I think a lot of people have a perception that you have to go to like the quote unquote like most prestigious school that you can get into and do a certain area of study that guarantees you a job, or it's something that like you'll make a lot of money in. I'm saying, yeah, that's true if that's what you're interested in. I think I met so many people freshman year, especially people that were in my like on my floor who I was like really good friends with, that came in trying to do like medical stuff. Like a bunch of people, I think like half of the people I met the first couple of weeks were in athletic training, because like, yeah, I like sports and like medicine, like it's like good money and I got to be around sports and stuff. But like they pretty much all but one of them, I think, changed their major by the end of the year, because it was super hard and took a lot of effort and time. And they realized they weren't quite ready for that. And I think a lot of people go in making that mistake, which I think could be avoided. Yeah, so I guess we kind of had, it's almost a basic 1-to-1 trade-off, I think, for us. Like the most value that I've gotten out of my college experience, like granted, I had some amazing classes and learned a lot of stuff later on that contributed to like what I wanted to do. But those first couple of years was just a lot of bullshit that you just did not care about, but you had to do to get that piece of paper. So I think overall, like the social aspects of my college experience were amazing, and the academic stuff was tough and frustrating, and especially frustrating when you're got those student loans, baby, that I'm gonna pay off for a while. But it was almost the opposite. Like the social aspect was kind of lacking, yet the academics part was more of a positive.
Yeah, I agree for that.
Interesting how it's a clear kind of 1-to-1 swap there.
Yeah, going to a community college, I definitely felt like I was still in high school. I'm still flabbergasted that there are lecture halls where there's 100 students just like listening to one dude. That still blows my mind. I still want to experience that kind of. Like, I don't want to take a class.
You can just walk into one, man. It's easy. Yeah. They don't care.
Yeah, I definitely want to do that one of these days.
Yeah, you'll have to come down sometime. You just walk in.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I always wondered, like, you said you've taken those large lecture classes. How'd that like compare to just like 20 like derpy kids sitting in like one room?
Yeah, I didn't take too many like big lecture hall classes. I think I only took like maybe 3 or 4 tops. But how they did them was you'd meet once or twice a week in the main lecture thing, but like once a week you would have recitation, which you would break up into smaller groups and meet with a TA over the material and do like other stuff related to the material. So you kind of get a little bit of both in those. But yeah, the large lecture hall class, it's just simple. Like he lectures, you take notes, you go home. Like maybe he'll ask a couple questions of people here and there. But that's pretty much it.
Did you have assigned seating for those?
No, you just go and sit wherever you want.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah,
that freeform.
Kids that wanted to like nap or like watch Netflix or something, they just sit in the back, and the computers out and do whatever, and then the brown-nosed students would sit up front and ask questions and everything. I was probably somewhere in the middle on that scale.
That's fair.
At least I tried to be. But yeah, no, it's a lot different, and I think the biggest thing I learned from that is just personal agency. Like you get what you like. There's no one like, hey man, like, you haven't been in class. Like professors like not coming up to you, hey, you haven't been in class. Like, can I help you out? Like, we need to meet or whatever. You have to go and seek that out yourself.
Right.
Which I think a lot of people like. They like that personal independence a lot. But for someone who's never had to really work that hard at school, it was a tough adjustment for me.
Sure.
And I think a lot of my friends as well.
Okay.
That's a tough. It's a tough transition, but no,
let me ask
really
you.
Let
me ask you this: did you ask a whole lot of questions in high school?
No, not really. I didn't really feel the need to.
Okay, I gotcha.
Most of the time, yeah. I took a couple AP classes. I was in AP History and AP English, and those were a little more rigorous. And also, I just like really loved the teachers in those classes, so we like talked outside of class and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but outside of that, no, I really didn't feel the need to most of the time.
Okay. When I was growing up in high school and just in any uh school, I asked a lot of questions. Even if like even if I understood it, I'd kind of ask a teacher to repeat it just to make sure I got it, or yeah, I don't know, just because I wanted to hear it again, just to make sure I had it in my head. So,
Well,
in
that's
that
great.
regard, I don't think I had too much of a problem asking questions, in college for something that I didn't understand or want to hear repeated. So
Well,
that's interesting.
that's a great trait. Yeah, I developed that later out of necessity because I was like, well, I need to pass, and I don't understand this at all, so I better figure this out. But yeah, no, I think that's the biggest difference is when you go to the bigger schools, you can get lost in the shuffle super easily because
Mm,
people, the ratio is that they can't have someone like looking over your, babysitting you the whole time. But like they have plenty of resources for if you like take the initiative. You can get tutors and there's like help centers and all sorts of stuff you can take
mm.
advantage of. It's just you have to be the one to take that step and be proactive with it.
Right, right.
Which is an adjustment. A lot of kids never get it, man. Like I had friends that they were smart kids, but they just they was too distracted by other things going on and just like never took the initiative to really go and like go to the learning center or get a tutor or anything like that, and they failed out. Like it's easy to do. Like it doesn't just come. That's why I've honestly learned in college is it's almost more effort than like your general like scholastic abilities and aptitude. Obviously to a certain point, like I could try as hard as I can. I would never be able to understand my friend who was a chemistry major, the stuff he brought home. Like I just that's just never gonna happen. But yeah, like that's the biggest thing. That kind of goes into our next piece here, talking about like regrets and advice we have regarding college. That's my biggest advice is you just have to really take the initiative and be proactive. And
Mm-hmm,
if you
mm-hmm.
do that, you will obviously see improvement. And my other biggest advice is just do something that you just really love and care about. Don't worry so much about like, oh, am I going to get a job right out of college? Am I going to make this much money? Blah blah blah. It's one, just because you won't be happy, and two, if you're not really interested and invested in the subject matter,
Mm-hmm.
as it gets harder, you get into those 300, 400 level classes. It really helps that you like actually are interested and care about what's going on because that's just going to motivate you even more. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's probably my biggest advice. And then as far as regrets for me, I would really recommend, especially if you're not entirely sure what you want to do right away, um, to do a year or two at a community college before you transfer to a four-year
Yes.
university.
Yes,
Because
yes, yes.
one, you will save a lot of money, and two, it'll be a lot easier. Like the Spanish class at because I had like a language requirement because I was in art and science college. I guarantee you the Spanish classes at Iowa Western were way easier than the ones I had to take at UNL. And if you don't really care about Spanish, like why would you spend more money to take something harder over something you don't care about? So
Right.
I find that as well. And also, don't be afraid to change things up. The average college student changes their major 3 times
Yeah,
within
yeah,
their
yeah.
college career. I did it once, as did you. But yeah, don't be afraid to change things up. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's kind of what that was my regrets and advice there. What do you have?
Pretty much advice you kind of you pretty much took most of mine. Yeah, like I definitely think that in terms of gen eds, like, oh, community college should just get those crappy, basic math classes out of the way where it's gonna be easier and hell of a lot cheaper. Like I've did community college for 3 years, changed my major once, and I think the year after I got out of college, I paid off all of my student loans. I just paid for all my
God damn.
classes. Well, our Western is super cheap. Their classes are really, really affordable. And I pretty much paid all those with my own money that I was. My first job I got was the first year I started college, and I was able to pay off all of my classes within that time. Granted, I was going to a fairly cheap college. It was a good college, and I had a job throughout the entire time. And that's kind of what the only thing I did with that money was just pay off my all the classes and whatnot. So yes, definitely, I would just say get the gen ed crap out of the way out of community college. Honestly, like. Actually, I'll touch on that a little bit later because that's kind of a question I want to ask you. But yeah, like I would even say don't try to like go like all in on like studying stuff. Like go find a nice balance between like studying and social life and having fun, because
definitely.
it's a learning experience for one, especially like new freshmen coming into college and even like seniors coming in. Yeah, like make sure you get your shit done for your academics, but yeah, go explore other routes of avenues of like entertainment and fun and whatnot, and other classes too. This would be the time to do it. And on the lines of that, definitely, absolutely, go into while you're going into college. It kind of almost expect to maybe change your major, because you may be pretty hard. It's very. I think it's really rare that a person goes to college and finishes college from what they started off. It's pretty rare, if I'm not mistaken, for someone to not change majors. So yeah, definitely kind of expect to have switching majors, or at the very least, just go into college expecting to have a different viewpoint. Absolutely, because you're mingling with so many other different people and just so many different walks of life that your opinions on things are just gonna change. It's just inevitable that they are gonna change.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the thing. Like when I look back, look back like it was so long ago, not that long ago that I was, living in the dorms and doing all that stuff. But you remember, you'll remember like sometimes, oh man, I really nailed that test. That was awesome. I feel good about that. But what you really remember is the times you're hanging around doing stupid stuff with your friends. Like those are the lasting memories, and the relationships you make that last the rest of your life. Like that's the stuff that's really valuable. And the other thing I would say is actively try something that you've never done before, or that you have like been curious about, because college is a great time to experiment.
Right.
In anything. There's so many different, especially at the bigger universities, there's so many different like clubs and like student groups that you can go and just like go to a meeting or two and try out and see what people are up to, and you'll meet different people, and like you said, completely change your perspective, which I think is super important. You don't want to come into college being like the exact same person you were before. It's a period of growth and of new perspective. So yeah, that I would almost at the risk of obviously don't forget about your academics, but like that should almost be your biggest objective, I think, when you're going into college.
Yeah, go into college and try a different class, join a club that's out of your comfort zone, maybe kiss a guy, I don't know, just try some different things.
Yeah, whatever, man. It's all about experimentation. That's exactly right. I did that. God.
All right, so one thing I wanted to ask you personally on the question is, so what's kind of like, what's like a big college moment that stuck out for you personally?
Like a quintessential, like stereotypical, like college experience.
You could maybe say that. I was going more along the lines of the dopey question of like, what's your favorite college experience, or story or whatever.
Damn. Well, there's a lot that I'd rather not share on the podcast because I don't know the like fair. Statute of limitations on some of those things. But I'm trying to think. I'll tell one. I remember that should be fine. That I fondly remember. So it was my freshman year in Nebraska. It was a night game. It was day of Halloween.
Okay, I know the story. And I love the story.
Yeah.
This story's amazing.
So we were going to the football game, and Michigan came into town, and they were good at the time, and it was a big upset. We upset them, and it was an amazing game. So we're in the student section, and because like Halloween was around, people just like wore their Halloween costumes to the game, which is super cool. I can't remember what my friends were wearing. I think Tyler was Marty McFly from Back to the Future 2. Mm-hmm. He had like a hoverboard and all this stuff. It was awesome. But I have a full body Spider-Man costume. I don't know I'm sure if you've listened to the pod before, you know my love for the webhead. But so right after the game, it was amazing. It was a huge upset. We went to this party. It was like a kind of deal where like someone like knows the guy who owns the house, so that's how you get invited. And we thought it was gonna be like just like a small little gathering type thing. And we show up. It's like this duplex, and there's easily over 100 people there. And we're like, oh my gosh. So we go in, and it's just like wall-to-wall people, and it's just crazy. And we go down to the basement. I think there was to play Pong or something. I don't remember. But it's just absolutely packed in there. Everyone's got costumes on. It was a fun time, but we're there for maybe 20 minutes, and someone sticks their head down the door. It's like, the cops are here. The cops are here. And my friend, who shall remain nameless, was quite intoxicated and was like freaking out. He's like, I can't get in trouble. This is the worst. Was just like losing his mind. Like, we got to leave. But the thing is, especially I feel like it's probably the case in most college towns, but Lincoln was definitely the way. As long as there wasn't anything too crazy going on at these college parties, the cops would just come. There may be like 2 or 3 of them that would come at once, and they would just kind of knock on the door and be like, hey, it's just getting kind of loud. If anyone who's just a heads up, we're going to start checking IDs in like 10 minutes, so anyone who doesn't want to do that should just go ahead and leave now, and it'll be fine. But he was drunk and like not thinking clearly, and was just convinced we were going to get in trouble. I'm like, dude, it's going to be totally fine. There's like 120 people here, and there's probably 2 cops at the door. Like, what are they going to do? Like, nab all of us and, ID people? So we just, casually just walk up the steps and start walking out the door. And like I thought, there's 2 cops at the door, and they're just like, everyone who walks by is like, hey, you guys have a sober driver? Do you have a ride home? Like, just kind of, taking care of everybody, which is great.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. But as we walk out, the cop goes, hey, Spider-Man! And I walk out and I double high five both of the cops, give one of them a hug, and run out the door. So that's a story I always think about. That was just an amazing night, a huge win, great football game,
it's
and
Spider-Man.
Hey, it's Spider-Man! It was just awesome. So I always remember that, and there's a lot of great stories like that, and even stuff like less outstanding than that is just hanging in the dorms with like 4 of your good friends, sitting around telling stories, or like passing the controller around, playing a video game till late up in the night, just getting to know people and developing those friendships. That's the stuff that I really remember more than anything else, and the stuff that I really value.
Yeah.
Again, there's a bunch of other stuff I could say, but again, I'm gonna keep some of those to myself. But yeah, they're those memories are awesome, and it's really great to get back together with those people and kind of reminisce about the good old days.
It's always cool to hear cool cop stories.
Yes. Especially these days.
Yeah.
That's it's a little bit different for some people, but yeah, no, and it's crazy out there, and I had a weird experience too. That in fact that I was I was in like an advisor mentorship role for the scholarship group I was in. So each year from like my sophomore year to, I don't think I did it. Did I do it senior year? Yeah, I did. I was like in charge of a group of like 10 or 12 freshmen that were also that got the scholarship, and I just kind of like a mentor. We had to meet with them every month and be like, hey, how's it going? What are you doing? Stayed up on top of things, and always had a lot of advice for them, especially not so much when it came to the academics, but more of the social aspect of things that I could talk about, but that's kind of boring. But yeah, I loved college. There's some parts of it that I would definitely do over again as far as just the academic side of things.
Oh yeah.
But at the end of the day, as much as the loans that I'm still paying off really suck, I wouldn't trade for anything. I've met people that I couldn't imagine my life without now. So yeah, end of the day, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Well, that's good to hear. It's good to hear that the choices you made, you're happy with. That's a lot of people should probably think about that, and a lot of people don't.
No, exactly. And you can really get bogged down with regrets and things. Because yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that kind of messed me up was everyone tells you when you're going into college, like, oh, this is gonna be the best 4 years of your life. This is gonna be amazing. You're gonna have all this fun, which is true. Like it was an absolutely wonderful time, but there's a lot of really shitty stuff that happens too, man. Like I had just really bad, some bad like work experiences doing like shitty college jobs, experiences just in classes that were really hard and didn't go my way, or like asshole professors, relationships. So there'd be like friends that come and go, or significant others that come and go. Like it's tough too, man. Especially if you're not financially stable enough that you have to like work through while going to school. That is a tough balance, and
right, absolutely,
it is. You are just going constantly, and it's a lot of people have issues when they come to college that spring up, whether it's like mental health stuff, or they just people talk about the freshman 15, um, which is kind of a joke because you're in the dorms and you get to like eat whatever you want and stuff. But I think a lot of that comes from it's like stress and just not having a lot of time, so you don't eat as healthy, you don't work out as much. It's a super hard adjustment for people, and it's not always cool college parties and hot girls and football games and stuff. It's a like I said, it's kind of that transition into adulthood, which is not always good. There's some real struggles that come with that. So that was always the thing I told my incoming freshmen. I was like, yes, this is an amazing time, but it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows the whole time, and just be ready for that. Because when I did start to struggle, I was like, man, I thought this was supposed to be like the most amazing part of my life, and then when it wasn't, it was really confusing and really frustrating and difficult to deal with. So I think having your expectations set properly is very important in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to mention, because we've been talking about college and stuff this whole time. College is by no means a requirement. I feel like that gets pushed on you a lot in high school, and for some people, it's just like not economically feasible. Like college is just getting ridiculously expensive, and I could talk about the politics of all that. It's really frustrating, and I think there needs to be a lot of changes, but I won't get into that now. But there are a lot of other awesome opportunities. Trade schools.
Yes.
Where you go to school for a little bit and you can get a really great job, and not have to go through any of the loans or anything, and get a job that is really well paying and that you can enjoy. So I definitely feel like people really have college forced upon them, and it's not for everybody. So I don't just like listen to this, don't feel the need to like, oh man, I'm missing out, I need to go to meet friends and go to cool parties like Ben. No, that's not always available. And the other thing, the kids that I was always jealous of, we have a community college here in Lincoln as well, and there was kids that went to school at the community college, but like had like friends and stuff that went to UNL, so they went to like the same parties and like stuff that we did, but weren't paying the UNL tuition. And I'm like, man, those kids are the smart ones. They're the ones that got to figure it out.
Interesting.
So yeah, think about that as well. Yeah, that's an idea.
Okay.
But yeah, I just wanted to put that disclaimer in there that
absolutely, I agree.
College
100%.
is by no means a requirement.
I agree 100%. Yeah, Sammy Woodrow's brother, he went to a trade school for audio engineering, so I kind of wish I did that too, but it's whatever. I'd have to say my probably my most prominent memory, fond memory of college is it was the we were just about ready to go for a Thanksgiving break. This was when I was a audio engineer major. It was the first year for that major. That group of our group of 7, we were still getting used to each other. So we had finished the believe it was like midterm or like a final or something. And we were still expected to come to class the day before Thanksgiving or whatever, the Thanksgiving weekend, whatever. So we finished that, but we were still expected to come to class. So my teacher just said, "Hey, I need to go." My teacher had to go do something else, but he said, "If you all just come in to the classroom and just sign off to prove that you actually came in your handwriting, then yeah, I'll count it. But I can't be in class today, so if you want, I trust you guys enough, you can do whatever you want in the studio," which the classroom that we had like 20 like iMacs with like preamps and preamps like connected to them and stuff like that. And the back, kind of like in a bunker, they had a recording studio, which was like, oddly enough, it was a really, really nice recording studio. So that day, we just came to class, signed our names, and just kind of looked at each other and said, well, what do you guys want to do? A couple of the my classmates, they brought like their instruments. Like one guy brought his drum kit, another friend brought his bass guitar, another friend brought his electric guitar, and we just kind of looked at each other and said, well, you want to have a jam session in the like $5,000 recording studio or however much it costed to do that? And we plugged everything in, set it up, and we just jammed out for like an hour for our class time. And it was really cool because we kind of got to apply what we learned without like having people look over us and teach us. So we, in that regard, we were like figuring stuff out at the same time. Like, oh, this is how this works. Oh, I remember how to do this. So it was kind of like we're actually learning something. And also we were like hanging out with our group of 7. So, and at that time we still weren't too comfortable with each other. And after that jam session, after that day of just playing music together, talking about audio and stuff like that, that's when I think that we all kind of became friends after that moment. Just it was very much like the Breakfast Club in a way. Funnily enough, we had the assistant teacher was not a great teacher. That's like a whole nother story. But to kind of send us off, I wrote a little speech that kind of me and my classmates worked on, and it was like pretty much it was word for word like the letter at the end of the Breakfast Club we wrote to our teacher, and that's how we left the school.
That's awesome, man. That's great.
Yeah, so it's not anything too crazy, but it was just a nice moment where I got to actually I got to personally just start making friends, and I got to really do audio like kind of on my own with some people that I really like. Yeah. So that's definitely the college moment that stands out the most for me.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, anything else we want to hit here before we wrap up?
I think I'll just echo what you said. Just college is honestly not necessary. Oh, another thing I wanted to hit on is honestly, don't feel bad if you choose to do community college. I know, like, I was going to community college, I felt like I kind of felt a little bit ashamed. But after I graduated from community college, I'm like, fuck, I'm done with school. I'm done with school. All my friends are still in it, and I have all my loans paid off. Like, wow, that was not too bad, actually. So
I'm quite jealous, actually.
Don't feel bad for doing community college. I totally get it. Absolutely not.
No, not at all, man. And take advantage of it. Like I said before, I wish I would have done that for a year or two more to get a lot of the prerequisite stuff out of the way. It would have saved me a lot of money and would have saved my GPA a little bit too. So, yeah, no, definitely consider that. Well, I think that's all we've got for you today here on the Flick Your Bick podcast here with Ben and Nick. Again, just a reminder, head us up on YouTube and on the Twitters. That's where we reside right now. Feel free to share that around. We'll have that up again shortly. And again, comment with anything you'd like to hear from us or feedback or just anything you got. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. Until then, it's been real. It's been fun. But it ain't been real fun. You know what I mean? I love that saying. It cracks me up. All right, guys. Catch you later.
Bye.